Yo, what's up, guys? Raptors get absolutely bullied tonight, losing to the Detroit Pistons 113-95. Man, this was a real lesson tonight for the Toronto Raptors, guys. Playing the Detroit Pistons for the first time this year. Obviously, the Pistons, first in the Eastern Conference, one of the best teams in the NBA. Obviously, got great players on their team, guys like Cade Cunningham, of course, but obviously Detroit was missing a few guys tonight in Duran and Isaiah Stewart, of course, due to that brawl that they had in Charlotte the other night. So that was really good for the Raptors that Detroit was missing two guys, but Detroit did not need those guys tonight. Detroit handled the Raptors tonight. No problem at all. Even without those two guys, Detroit just bullied the Raptors tonight for 4 quarters, guys. I was thoroughly impressed with the Pistons. First time seeing them this season, and I said to myself after this game, this Detroit Pistons team, they're legitimate and they're for real. Like in that first quarter, you got Paul Reed, who's been averaging 6 points a game. This guy goes like 7 of 8 from the field with like 16 bloody points. It's like, where the hell did this guy come from? Taking advantage of his opportunity with Duran and Stir the lineup, of course. And he goes and does what he does in this game tonight, having the amount of points he does in that first quarter alone. It was really frustrating to see how the Raptors were defending, leaving him open, on screen and rolls. He made a three-pointer, easily getting into the lane with a couple dunks. It was really bad defending by the Raptors. All game, the Raptors' perimeter defense was not very good, of course. Detroit had many opportunities at second chance chances, their second chance opportunities there, guys. Detroit had a lot of offensive rebounds in this game, really making the Raptors' life difficult in this game. And then not to mention, Cade Cunningham, what a player that this guy is, being the first overall pick for the Pistons, 3 to 4 years ago. This guy here has really stepped it up a notch for the Pistons this season, having 18 alone in the second bloody quarter, man. He was immense, if you guys ask me. Like, Cunningham had 22 at half. Reed had 18 at half. Like, Robertson had 11, who's a fantastic shooter. Obviously a very good defender at times, And the Pistons, as a whole defending, were really good against the Raptors. The Raptors cut it down at one point to 6. Cunningham wasn't in the game. Raptors were able to cut the deficit. He comes back into the game, and then boom, an 8-0 run, and the lead goes back up to 14 points. The Raptors did not take advantage of their opportunities tonight. Didn't take advantage when Cunningham wasn't on the floor. You missed your chances. Detroit, they had a moment in the second quarter where they went on a lull for like 4 to 5 minutes where they didn't score a basket, but the Raptors couldn't score either because Detroit locked it down defensively and said, you are going to play us man on man and see if you can beat us 1v1. And Detroit asked for that, and the Raptors couldn't do anything. They could not do nothing. Like I said the other day or last week against Minnesota, when the Raptors have to play the game slowly, move the ball up the floor, not play this fast offense, where you're catching rebounds and pushing the ball up the floor on the fast break. The Raptors will suffer, and we saw that again today. Detroit controlled all of the game today. Like, the entire game, Detroit led. They controlled the game today, Detroit. They were just the better team on every facet. Extra chances, second chance opportunities. Solid on defense. Made their three-pointers. The Raptors were getting absolutely torched on the mid-screen and rolls. Many times we have seen the Raptors get torched on mid-screen and rolls this year, guys. And it's getting more and more frustrating because they do not know how to defend it. And then Cade Cunningham, this guy here, not only is he a great shooter, and he was shooting the ball really well from three-point land today. And Cade Cunningham is not known for really shooting three-pointers at that type of level. So he's had his struggles, but today he shot 6 threes. The Raptors couldn't contain him. They couldn't contain other guys in this game. It was an extremely frustrating first half for the Raptors. They shot 44% from the field. They were perfect from the line. 3-pointers, they were 6 of 18, but Detroit shot 52% from the field and 53% from 3. That's where the Raptors got really hurt. 10 offensive rebounds in the first half for the Pistons. The Pistons had 11 turnovers, But the Raptors, unfortunately, they were able to score 15 points on turnovers, but Detroit was able to get into the paint and score 26 points to the Raptors 18. There was just too many times in this game today, guys, where Detroit was just a way better team in this ball game tonight. Even in the second half, it's just not good enough by the Raptors. Detroit just controlled the game, moved the ball, just the things the Pistons were doing, the Raptors were just falling for everything the Pistons were doing in this game today. Anything the Pistons did offensively, the Raptors would break down defensively, and Detroit would either have a man wide open for a shot or get a man down low in the post for a wide open layup. There was just too many times today where Scotty was doubled as well today. B.I. had some difficulties as well on offense today, guys. This was just one of those games today where the Raptors were taught a bloody lesson today, guys. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tonight was just one of those games where it was men against boys. Tonight was a game where you show the Raptors in film. This is a team like the Pistons that are ready to win. The Raptors are not there yet. They are nowhere near what the Pistons are. We have been using this word a lot this year regarding the Raptors against the top 10 teams in the NBA, and it's physicality. The top 10 teams in the NBA are just way more physical than the Raptors. We saw it again tonight with the Pistons. Just way more physical on defense, way more physical on offense, on the boards. They were just better in every facet in this game. Scotty and B.I., 17 and 13 points today, guys. They were really held tonight by the Pistons defense. Locked down defensively tonight by the Pistons. 17 for Scotty, 13 for B.I., 9 for Yak. That was the only positive tonight, was seeing Jakob back after a 24-game absence. That's great to see, only playing 20 minutes tonight, but fantastic to see Jakob back in the lineup for the Raptors. IQ had only 18, RJ had 16, and then this is the problem with the Toronto Raptors, guys. Their bench. Jamal Shed with 0, Jacoby with 3, Sandro with 7, Grady had 10. This is not enough points from the bench for the Raptors. You are not going to win games like this when you don't have your bench producing, of course. When they have lulls on offense, guys, there's just too many frustrating things with the Raptors right now. Then you got guys on Detroit, Herter had 9. Okay, LeVert had 9. Jenkins had 8. Green had 8. Green had 3. So Detroit's bench was better than the Raptors, even though it wasn't amazing, their bench. They found ways to score, and this is the problem with the Raptors bench. They have too many lulls offensively. They get bullied too many times in this game, and in past games, of course, this bloody season. It drives me nuts. Cunningham finishes off with 28. Reed finishes off with 22. And then those were the only two guys with 20 points. Harris had 12. Robertson had 13. Thompson had 4. And Herter, I said, had 9. There wasn't many guys that were amazing tonight, but Detroit was just a way more physical team tonight in every aspect of this game. The Raptors there's something wrong with this team mentally, because they are not able to take it up a notch and take it a step up physically, and defensively when they have to. And the Raptors are a solid team defensively, but when they play these top 10 teams that they have a record of 4-13 against, you're going to struggle. That's just that simple, honestly, guys, And Detroit, give them credit. With the two of their guys, in Duran and Stewart, they handled the Raptors no problem tonight. JB Bickerstaff has done a hell of a job with the Pistons. They're 40 and 13. The Raptors had 120 points the last 3 games. Tonight they were held to 95. That's a credit to the Pistons defense being so great, shutting the Raptors down, forcing the Raptors to play a slower tempoed offense, making them move the ball more. And that's where the Raptors, they struggle majority of the time, guys. Pistons have 17 offensive rebounds, 63 rebounds compared to the Raptors 38. My God, man. Just absolutely unacceptable by the Raptors, guys. Then you have 18 second chance points for the Pistons, 50 points in the paint compared to the Raptors 34. That's self-explanatory there, guys. It honestly is. 15 points off turnovers for the Pistons. Raptors had 16. 14 fast break points to the Raptors 9. You see, when the Raptors do not have more than 15 points on the fast break, they're going to be in big bloody trouble against these top defensive teams in the NBA. They're going to bloody struggle, guys. So there are too many signs that this team here is just not ready to win yet. The Raptors, they're still young. got some growing pains still with this team, but Detroit tonight showed them. They taught them a lesson tonight that they are ready to win the Pistons. The Raptors are just a step or two behind the Detroit Pistons. You know, that could be a personnel thing, a mentality thing. You know, there are a lot of reasons for why the Pistons are where they are and the Raptors are, you know. But I like where we're going as a team. 32 wins, guys, at the All-Star break is great compared to what we were last year. 30 in total, guys. So All-Star break is now. Congrats to Brandon Ingram for making it as a replacement. Absolutely deserve to be there in replacement. So we'll see what happens, guys, after the All-Star break. Thank you very much for watching. As always, like this video. Subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Go Raptors, go as always, guys. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Raptors Unfiltered. Ciao, guys.